Hello, everybody. My name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to another episode of Newsflash today. Thank you so much for joining us. On today's show, we're talking about Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer, big leaders in the Democratic Party, under fire for refusing to take bold action on this issue of the eviction moratorium, the one put in place by the CDC, although it hasn't been quite effective for everybody. And that is, of course, another issue about how the law is fundamentally on the side of the landlord class in this country. That CDC eviction moratorium the Supreme Court has not been allowed to extend it, and Congress has let it expire and gone off for August recess. Very few members of the squad, Cori Bush, some Mondaire Jones, AOC stopping by out there. Cori Bush really leading the charge here, sleeping outside. Pretty much AOC really seemed to just show up for a photo op, but we're following that story for you. Also, continuing to keep an eye on the Nina Turner race, and yes, we will be live tomorrow night to cover it, as a corruption scandal has really roiled the final days of this race. Chantel Brown under scrutiny for helping to award millions of contracts to her partner and donors. We're going to get you into some of those corruption allegations on our last story, but we are starting with this talk of pandemic surge, as Americans here in the New York Times suffering pandemic with whiplash as leaders have struggled to adapt policy to this virus. Break down what's new, the latest, and my thoughts on the issue. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is Newsflash 548. All right, let's get right on into it, everybody. And we start off with this virus stuff. A week of public health reversals from the White House and the CDC has left Americans with pandemic whiplash, showing confusion about coronavirus vaccines and wearing masks as the Delta variant upends what people thought they knew about how to stay safe. And it really seemed to, for quite a long time, it was an incredible, personally, I've really become a lot more of a, a lot more kind of liberal, not in the, these traditional, politicized sense, but much more liberal in, restrictions. And I think we should be a little bit more liberal now that we have so many people vaccinated. Again, I am not, the public health expert, but it's a very, very tough thing to process to be asked to go back into lockdown after we've done this massive vaccination effort. I think before anyone starts a lockdown, they should start, mandating, vaccination, because this is stuff that's been proven to be safe. And if it really does, and again, I'm not entirely convinced that a lot of these cases are coming from, the unvaccinated and all those people, and I think the government, they should definitely still, I'm convinced that they are coming from mostly unvaccinated people, because they are, but the question I think arises from there is, what should the government do about it? Like, I think they should definitely put every effort forward. I think they should do some sort of, because I think if they just mandated it to do certain things, now it doesn't have to be, a full vaccine passport, but if they mandated it to go on, for example, a plane or go to the supermarket, for example, a lot of people, research shows, would get it. It's not like, for some people, yes, it is a complete fear of the vaccine because they believe, Bill Gates put it like a tracking chip in it or whatever. But a lot of people, they just don't, they have general sense of mistrust. They have reasons that, they don't have the ability to go to, they pretty much haven't made it enough of a priority, because they haven't really needed to prioritize it above things like, getting food on the table and, just the day-to-day push of everyday life to go get the vaccine. So when you're talking about how you're going to get shots in arms here, which, again, should be the goal, Biden hitting 70% vaccinated now, August 2nd, when he thought he would be able to hit it on July 4th, it is a really big blow, and it is a really big loss. Like, just, it is really tough, again, to ask so many Americans to go back in this lockdown stuff when there has been such a promise of, the vaccination, pandemic ending, restrictions lifting, and it's really going to be tough to convince a lot of people, and especially if a lot of people on the left, the center left, and, just people who are generally associated with the Democratic Party, that yet really we're going to do this kind of lockdown stuff again. Vaccines remain effective and highly protective against hospitalization and death among even those infected with the extremely contagious Delta variant. Mask wearing prevents transmission of the virus to those most at risk. But the crisis President Biden once thought he had under control is changing shape faster than the country can adapt. An evolving virus, new scientific discoveries, deep ideological divides, and 18 months of ever-changing pandemic messaging have left Americans skeptical of public health advice. And I think it's there's been a lot of pandemic misinformation. There's been a lot of really awful vaccination fear mongering and from various sources. But the real thing is there cannot be ignored that there's a fundamental from various groups all throughout the country. There's a fundamental lack of trust of authority of government, of people who really run the show. And that has just been utterly, it just has not been met with any sort of broad-based policy from Joe Biden. And it's been very, very tough. So although the White House has already promised a summer of joy, the nation is instead caught in a summer of confusion. While we desperately want to be done with this pandemic, COVID-19 is clearly not done with us. So our battle must last a little longer. This is hard, this is heavy, but we're in this together. All this kind of public health messaging. And with the CDC, with the things like Fauci, what he said with the masks early on, trying to push them off to healthcare workers or whatever the hell he was trying to do, stuff with the gain of function research, his real kind of taking public health, taking matters of science into his own hands and ridiculous stuff like that. It is really, it's really hard to ask a lot of people. I think it's really hard to go to these guys who have been so, either through, sometimes, faults of their own, and sometimes no fault of their own, the fact that, this was a changing pandemic, they have been screwed up disastrously. And for the American public to go back, to ask the American public to go back to them is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting right now. Like this guy, he is saying things like this that are just absolutely ridiculous. And if you're listening to them and you want, if you're a government policy official, so anyone who understands basic communications, and you want this guy to have any credibility beyond a small set of the population that's very liberal and in tuned upper class, in tuned MSNBC and New York Times and things like that, then this kind of stuff is not going to work.
What you're seeing as attacks, quite frankly, are attacks on science, because all of the things that I have spoken about consistently from the very beginning have been fundamentally based on science. You're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
Yeah, so he's pretty much saying, if you criticize me, you are I am science. Pretty much, he and other public health officials are portraying them, very small sect, are portraying themselves to be science. But obviously, the very nature of science is it is always up for questions, always up for reformulation. And the fact that, sure, there's been a lot of Republicans who are coming out of this with very uninformed, bad takes that are just definitely designed to kind of cause more chaos and confusion. The idea that questioning Fauci in any way from a good faith perspective is anti-science, that is an incredibly crazy thing to say, and one that does not lend well to any sort of credibility or any kind of goodwill the public may have towards one of the biggest public-facing public health officials in this country. So the virus continues to scramble some traditional politics. In left-leaning Chicago, city officials announced that more than 385,000 people had attended the 4-day Lollapalooza music festival, and Mayor Lori Lightfoot defended it. So even though, as John Bello Edwards in Louisiana and people, I believe, in the Bay Area, they're putting back mask mandates all over the place, Lori Lightfoot continues to be one of the worst politicians I've ever seen, hosting this massive music festival, defending it. She's been caught busting some of her mask mandates at times, and she's gonna blame it on the fact that people are being sexist to her. That's pretty much how Lori Lightfoot rolls. In Washington, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican senator of South Carolina, and longtime supporter of President Donald Trump, announced he had tested positive for the coronavirus, but he has said his symptoms have been mild, which he attributed to having received the vaccine. I feel like I have a sinus infection, Graham wrote on Twitter. Without vaccination, I'm certain I would not feel as well as I do now. My symptoms could be far worse. And that is exactly right. And that's the case that so many people need to be making. And it really helps if it's coming from people, maybe not necessarily Lindsey Graham, but people like Lindsey Graham. And if they make that case, then I think, not everybody, there's always going to be a few skeptics and people who think, the vaccine's going to put Bill Gates style tracking chips on you and all that stuff. But it really is very, very hard to, it's very, very hard to imagine what it's a very, very hard to imagine, like, justifying putting all these new putting all these COVID restrictions back when the vaccine is there and it's up for people. And there is clearly such a disparity in terms of vaccinated cases and unvaccinated cases. And in certain areas for the CDC to come out and say, oh, you're vaccinated, so that you're pretty much like little to no, you still recommend or whatever it's like the guidelines are. Yeah, in certain areas in this country, the COVID is bad enough where you should wear a mask even if you are vaccinated. Then what is the point of getting vaccinated for these people? There is no point. Like, why would you? Because it's very much a paradox, because if you get vaccinated, then you're bringing herd immunity up so that these outbreaks won't happen. But also, what's the point of getting vaccinated if you're still going to have to wear a mask anyway? So it is very, very tough to imagine it. But I think for a lot of the things, what I would do is, if you have not gotten the vaccine, like, please, please, please get it. It's only going to redound to your benefit, and it's safe. So I don't see what the point is. Like, if it's some sort of BS personal choice thing, like, this is the area where you want to draw the line now on personal choice and personal freedom and personal liberty. Like, you're going to let the freaking government spy on you. You're going to let your job steal from you all over the place. You're going to let yourself being screwed over in every other instance of your life. But when it comes to the thing that allows you to go to the restaurant, allows you to literally stay alive and keep everyone else around you alive and healthy, that is where, oh, if I take the vaccine, that's a violation of my personal choice. Like, anyone who says that clearly has no idea of the amount, like, they're living under, like, they are the character in the cartoon that's about to run into the mountain, like, the tunnel painted inside the mountain. Like, they're living in delusional fantasy land. They don't know the country that they live in, and it's really crazy. Nationally, cases have continued to climb. The country reported a daily average of 80,000 new infections on Sunday, up from 12,000 in early July, according to a New York Times database. A spate of scary news stories about unvaccinated people dying from COVID-19 appears to have accomplished what Biden could not. The nation finally reached the White House's target, initially set for July 4th, of having 70% of American adults at least partially vaccinated. Some experts say the CDC is to blame for some of the confusion after saying in May that vaccinated people could go maskless indoors and outdoors. The agency did an about-face last week, once again recommending indoor masking for everybody, vaccinated or not, in places where the virus is spreading more rapidly. So they're going to have a list of counties that are specifically bad. Only days later did the leaked document deliver the grim reasoning. Delta is contagious as chickenpox and spreading even among the fully vaccinated, which puts unvaccinated people at risk and poses the threat of another viral mutation that could evade vaccine. So pretty much the main reason why is Delta variant is contagious enough so that vaccinated people could spread to non-vaccinated people, and there are enough non-vaccinated people out there that a new vaccine-resistant variant could mutate from them. But the messaging there is just so bad. Like, you got to dig down for that. And I think fundamentally that lack of clarity and that, like, clear path to get us out is another major real problem, along with the many other major real problems that we already have. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our segment to tell you all about what's going on here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network this summer. We do, as I'm sure you know, have a great lineup available for you. We, of course, start with our flagship show, Newsflash, all new Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Uncultured, irregularly back every Saturday with live music and sports analysis with my co-host for the summer, Bennett Laxton. Hidden History will be brand new every Thursday on a bit of a hiatus, but will return shortly. It's the summer of podcasting. It's the summer of sounds. All you got to do is just keep listening wherever you get your podcasts, always here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. So what seems like it's about to happen is really kind of a horrific situation. This is in Common Dreams here. As congressional leaders in the White House continue to point fingers on Monday about the coronavirus cases kept rising, largely due to the highly contagious Delta variant, the youth-led Sunrise Movement and other progressives demanded the Democratic leadership act to extend the recently expired federal moratorium on evictions by any means necessary. The Sunrise Movement's call came after progressive lawmakers and campaigners slept on the steps of the U.S. Capitol throughout the weekend, and the Biden administration and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi put out new statements on Monday on the evictions moratorium's expiration. So let's take a look at what's going on. Sunrise Policy Director Lauren Mann is saying here, last week Congress did the unthinkable. Instead of fighting to extend the eviction moratorium and prevent millions of people from being forcibly removed from their homes during the COVID-19 pandemic and climate crisis, they went on vacation. The policy failure was preventable, said Sunrise Movement Advocacy Director Lauren Mannis. After President Joe Biden refused to extend the CDC eviction moratorium, citing a controversial argument stemming from a Supreme Court decision, which, by the way, Rochelle Walensky or whatever the hell she said that the COVID crisis is so bad that we need to stop migrants from coming in, but Americans, we can't keep them in their homes because of the Supreme Court. We're talking about, again, this is a situation that, I don't know if I'm going to pull a little bit of this may be a little bit of ancient history here, but, one president famously said, the Supreme Court made the ruling, now let them enforce it. Enable to see you are the president of the United States, Joe Biden. You have the power. You could do it. You could get away with it. And good luck trying to trying to smear Joe Biden for going around, the Supreme Court authority or whatever the letter of what the Supreme Court says to try and keep people in their homes. I really don't think there's going to be a popular uprising or a freak out over democracy over the fact that Joe Biden overstepped the Supreme Court or maybe overstepped his legal boundaries to keep millions of people off of the streets. And again, in the middle of the pandemic, that CDC director and immigrant hater Rochelle Walensky thinks is so serious. And again, I think as it comes down to it, this is coming from the top. Joe Biden, for whatever reason, seems to just not think that this issue is politically important enough to make a big deal out of. And even though they're still trying to turn over a new leaf on immigration, they're hitting this anti-migrant thing hard. So the House of Representatives also failed to pass legislation that would have extended through the end of the year. House Democrats tried to approve the measure by unanimous consent, meaning that could be. It's just like, why are they doing this? Just vote on the freaking bill. You could do it. The House of Representatives, they failed to in a Democratic House, literally a Democratic majority House failed to pass legislation. This is not the Senate. This is not the president. The House couldn't even get a bill passed to put onto the Senate that would have extended the moratorium. Why? Because they did it in a way that one Republican could have blocked it. They couldn't even get the bill to the Senate to be voted on. What is the point of voting for Democrats if they can't keep millions of people in the middle of their homes, during the middle of the pandemic? This is still going on. Still, the pandemic's been going on, even if it was over now and everything was completely fine, which is not. You've got people who are been unemployed, been in awful economic situations for a very long time, unable to pay their rent, now forced to pay it now. That is not a tenable situation that anybody should be thinking is okay in the first place. What is the point of these people if they could not put the House wouldn't even pass it? It's unbelievable. Why? What right does Nancy Pelosi or any of these people have to ever go in front of voters ever again and demand for their vote? Let alone to make the case that, the Republicans are going to be worse. Democrats with a trifecta in the government could not get a bill up in the House to be passed to keep people in their homes. Nancy Pelosi's reaction, we found out about this 2 days ago. Maybe she found out about it earlier and forgot about it. This is just, this is real criminal negligence. Just on a human level. Just failing to keep people, it's just unbelievable. Manus saying, who are the adults in the room? Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. Stop playing the blame game and show us who you stand for. Do whatever it takes to extend the eviction moratorium and end this eviction emergency. According to Sunrise, the multiple movement members have joined Cori Bush on the steps of the Capitol for the past few days. The congresswoman, who was previously homeless, thank God. This is why we need people like her in Congress, because no one would do it otherwise. No one would do it. The fact that Justice Democrats was able to put someone who was formerly, unhoused into Congress is a remarkable achievement. And this is what it gets. She says, we at Sunrise are, man is here. We at Sunrise are committing to fighting alongside Representative Cori Bush and other activists who are fighting on the ground and on the steps of Capitol Hill to extend the eviction moratorium and end the trauma caused by this policy failure. Democrats have control of the Senate, House, and the White House. It's their duty to act immediately. And they really can't blame the Republicans for this, because how could you? How could you blame the Republicans for this? Like, what is your role as a political party? She says, Cori Bush said, I just had a conversation with VP Kamala Harris. I needed her to look me in the eyes, and I wanted to look into hers when I asked for help to prevent our people from being evicted. Madam Vice President, let's work together to get this done. We need a federal eviction moratorium. It's going to be huge for Cori Bush if she's able to get this passed and stop people. She would be a hero for it, really. Bush emphasized that we're going to go to the White House to move with this. We're going to ask the White House to go ahead and set a new moratorium and let us get that action rolling while Congress reconvenes. Let's have Congress come back and reconvene. Let's get these votes, just get 218. And while we're working on this, we'll at least have the moratorium in place. So this is talking about this unhoused Bill of Rights that she's working on in Congress to just protect people a little bit for it. And so, yeah, good for her. But if she just at least get that moratorium up as soon as possible. So, in a joint statement on Sunday, Pelosi and other Democratic leaders in the House acknowledged that Biden had asked Congress last week to extend the moratorium. But sadly, it is clear the Senate is not able to do so, and any legislation in the House, therefore, will not be sufficient to extend the moratorium. Sadly, millions of people, because the Senate's not able to do so. Like, it's unbelievable. So, action. This is their statement. Action is needed, and it must come from the administration. How is it going to come from the administration? I don't get it. This is why the House leadership is calling on the administration to immediately extend the moratorium, framing extension as a moral imperative to keep people from being put out on the street, which contributes to the public health emergency as well. In a lengthy statement on Monday, the White House press secretary doubled down on the administration's position that although the president would have strongly supported a decision by the CDC to extend the eviction moratorium, a June Supreme Court ruling meant the agency could not grant such an extension without clear and specific congressional authorization via new legislation. So they need Congress, literally, according to the Supreme Court. And it's like you can go back and forth, but the clear thing is this is what has happened. There's been an opportunity for so there's been a public health crisis, right? There has been an opportunity to extend this eviction moratorium. It's been up for, we all knew when this was going to end. We all knew it was going to end, August, 2nd or 1st, whenever it did end. This was all coming up. Congress knew it was, or at least should have known it was coming. Nancy Pelosi said herself that she found out only a few days ago, and this is the best they can do. Pointing fingers at each other. They have no plan. They have no way to get anybody out of this. And they just completely caught with their pants down because they don't view this as an issue. All they do is like farting up their own asses about all day is about, who's going to put $10 billion on this part of the infrastructure bill? And how are we going to, what time is my next fundraiser? That is what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about people out on the streets. And that goes to every single Democrat and every single Republican, except for maybe a few Democrats at the moment who may have given it a little bit of consideration, like Cori Bush. Cori Bush, for example, huge credit to her. She gave it way more consideration than seemingly anybody else. But what is going on here is people, this is a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic White House. And the best they can do is finger point and say that they only knew about it just a few days ago. And they're just all out of ideas. This is the party that is trying to win your vote. Does anybody think this is a long-term tenable solution? This is a party that's supposed to go out in America and say, vote for me. Because why? What am I going to do? Can I even keep you in your homes in the middle of a pandemic? No, I can't do that. But yeah, vote for me in the midterms. Sure, that's going to go great. All right, we're moving on to our last story today, and that is with what's going on in the Ohio's 11th district. Yeah, so we got this very interesting story from Walter Bragman and Andrew Perez in Jacobin. And so it starts off in April, The Intercept, we talked about this, I believe, on the last show. The Intercept reported that Brown, a Cuyahoga County council member, has voted to award millions of dollars of contracts to companies connected to her romantic partner and campaign donors. Emails that Walter Bragman read here show that the Ohio State Auditor's Office reviewed the allegations in the article and recently referred the matter to state ethics commissions. So under Ohio law, public officials are prohibited from knowingly authorizing or using their authority to influence to secure authorization of any public contract in which the public official, a member of the public official's family, or the public official's business associates have an interest. Violation of the statute is a felony, and the penalties could include prison time. Not a good story when you're trying to run a campaign. So obviously Brown is running against the Democratic, in the Democratic primary race against former Ohio State Senator and Bernie Sanders surrogate Nina Turner for the open congressional seat. Brown has been on the county council since 2015 and also serves as chair of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party and has seen strong support from the National Party establishment. In recent weeks, Brown's campaign and her efforts to paint Turner as a bad Democrat have benefited from high-profile endorsements from Congressional Black Caucus PAC, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn. Brown has also seen some pretty strong support from corporate lobbyists and outside groups such as the DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel PAC, a pro-Israel super PAC, whose biggest donor is an oil and gas executive and heir to a massive fossil fuel fortune. Makes a lot of sense there. And again, that's the Israel PAC that pretty much has nothing to do with Israel, pretty much a front group for the right wing of the Democratic Party. The corporate think tank Third Way, which recently endorsed legislation encouraging more states to cut the federal pandemic-related unemployment benefits, entered the Cleveland race last week, dropping $250,000 in digital ads opposing Turner. So this is really a big money onslaught. So again, just a real... Like what I would say to everybody, if they're listening to this in any way, they can please do all you can here for Nina Turner. The election, literally, as I'm recording this, it's 12/18. The election is today, but you know it is going to be really, really sweet to see the possibility of Nina Turner win. Amid the anti-Turner onslaught by the Democratic establishment, Brown's campaign released survey numbers last week showing her up 26 points since April and within striking distance of Turner. Brown has even received support from Donald Trump ally Robert Kraft, the billionaire owner of the New England Patriots. But Brown's corporate bankrolled scorched earth campaign is also earning detractors. On one day, Walter Stewart, a local city councilman in Cuyahoga County, posted a video saying he was rescinding his endorsement of Brown because of what he called phony politics, big business, and tit-for-tat negative campaigning. And we need someone, he said, who's going to stick with the issues, and that person is Nina Turner. So good win for him, especially as someone, Nina Turner, who's trying to paint herself as the real local Democrat with actual ties to the community and has also good values and policies, too. Like, it's been pretty tough for her because there is this, like, big, because, you know, establishment figures, they rarely have a positive vision for the future, if ever, because they're kind of just built off of keeping things exactly the way they are, and that is not very popular for a lot of people because the way things are really does suck. So pretty much what they do is go to any lengths to smear the people who are running. And they can also, that in politics can look very, very bad because negative campaigning can be a real risk. It makes things look a lot, you know, it raises a lot of tensions, and especially in kind of smaller, tight-knit communities, like kind of what happened with the main Senate race on the Democratic side for Sarah Gideon and Susan Collins. It can really, really redound poorly to the person who's launching that onslaught. In that case, Sarah Gideon was doing tons of out-of-state money, and if that really, especially kind of floods into a small kind of, you know, community, kind of closer knit community. It's an urban area, so that may not quite be the case, but all that outside money there is going to have some sort of effect. And the question is, people are going to be tired of it, and enough people are going to be tired of it to stick with Nina Turner and stick with someone who's actually focused on the issues. Actually, like, you know, still they're drawing contests, which Nina Turner I'd say definitely is, maybe a little even more than Bernie, which is so good for her. But yeah, so they're out there, they're drawing, like, she's drawing contests, but will it be enough? That is going to be the big question. And what choice will the voters make? We will find out later today, actually, because we're recording. It's Tuesday, so later today, in probably about 24 hours, we will be live, and we will be. I'll try and get a guest. And we will bring you the election results. You can follow more on my Twitter for that at SBW272. But yeah, personally, I think Nina Turner is going to be able to pull it out. I'm getting good sense on this. I may be wrong. This may be a little bit unfortunate, but I think it's going to be close. Nina Turner is going to pull it out because just, again, this negative campaign, lack of focus on the issues, it's really going to go down. I think it's going to go down as a much needed win for the left, and it's going to be great, God willing, to have Nina Turner in Congress. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been Newsflash.